Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm drawing whatever the heck I want. I've had a very busy past couple of weeks, and I've been feeling a bit tired. I've also been receiving comments that are starting to make their way into my headspace. So to give myself a bit of a break, I decided it's time once again to do a drawing whatever the heck I want. So I started this video with not being in the greatest mental space. Like I've said, I've been getting some kind of negative feedback in my comment section. Like with all comment sections, my comment section is often a mixture of positive and negative feedback. And I always try to do my best to see where both sides are coming from. I'm very thankful for the positive feedback, and I try to take into consideration what the negative feedback is telling me. But for the past couple of months, I've gotten a good amount of comments saying that they feel like I'm not improving. The comments will say things like, I feel like she hasn't improved at all since I started watching her, or her art hasn't changed in years. Things kind of like that. The first time I brushed it off. The second time I also tried to not focus on it too much. But with each time I get a comment like this, it sticks with me more and more and more. And now it's at the point where it's kind of really bothering me. And it might be sticking with me because I agree with it to some extent. This past year, I feel like my relationship with art has been a bit different than it was before. And I will come back to this topic later in the video. But for now, I'll explain what's going on in the drawing footage. I was trying to sketch something, but I was kind of hitting an art block because I was putting pressure on myself. I guess I was wanting to draw something that showed that I am getting better or that I am improving. But because I was forcing this idea, I was having a hard time drawing anything. Whenever I want to try to draw something good, it's when I have the hardest time drawing anything. Eventually I took a break. I think I played Exploding Kittens with my siblings or something like that. My boyfriend introduced my family to this game when he visited last time, and it's a very fun game. But after taking a break, I was contemplating if I even wanted to go back to drawing, and I was texting my boyfriend for a bit, and when I finished texting him, my brain was like, what if you drew boyfriend as a chibi? And a part of me was like, no, I was going to draw something serious and try to improve my skills. But the other part of me was like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I feel like something simple and fun was just what I needed on this day, so I went with it. I have chibi versions of all my siblings, and I'm going to draw my boyfriend in the same style. To get the proportions similar, I trace over my chibi to get the basics in place. It was a little funny because as I was doing this, my sister Reagan came up behind me and said, oh, are you making a new chibi version of yourself? And I said, no, I'm not. She was a bit confused, so she said, well, what are you doing then? I sheepishly reply, drawing my boyfriend as a chibi. Don't judge me. Reagan started laughing at that. She started acting as if she was me. She was like, I'm going to draw my boyfriend and no one's gonna stop me. So for this chibi, I am trying to give it characteristics of my boyfriend, obviously. He wears rectangular glasses, often has a bit of stubble, but if he could, he would prefer to go without it. It grows back really fast. He also often wears hats because he likes hats. Also, yes, I did buy another hat 3D model because I'm too lazy to figure out how to draw a fedora. Plus, I couldn't find a good reference online. All of the pics of fedoras are a bit from above, but I needed one from the side. So I just opted for a 3D model instead because I couldn't find a good reference. I looked for a pretty good amount of time. His hair is pretty short and is dark brown, but the hat covers a lot of it. Since we are on the topic of my boyfriend, I thought I would address some of the common questions or comments that I get. The first one is, how did we meet and how long have we been together? We met through a dating site. My boyfriend jokes that to make things simpler, we should tell people we met at a bar, even though we both don't drink. Also, sorry I'm referring to him as my boyfriend and not by his name. I don't want to give away his name for his own privacy. So for now and onwards, he's just going to be referred to as my boyfriend or boyfriend. Also, we started talking to each other in July, so about 4 months ago. The second comment I often get is he better treat me right. I'm glad you're all concerned for me, but yes, he does treat me very well. With my sensitive disposition, I wouldn't do very well with someone who's a jerk. Thankfully, he is very sweet and not a jerk. The third comment I get a lot is, I hope you two break up so you will be single on Valentine's Day and you'll make another visual novel. I'm surprised by how many times I've seen this. Like, I don't need to be single to make a visual novel. I will most likely still make one if I have time. So please don't wish for us to break up. So yeah, those are some of the common comments I keep seeing and a little bit about us. Also, it was super funny. I was trying to decide what to have the chibi version of him wear, and I was thinking about the different shirts and outfits I've seen him in, and I remembered about his long-sleeved green sweater, and his favorite color is dark green, so I went with it. The funny part is that when I video chatted him right after I drew this, he was wearing the sweater I was thinking about. Also, I did ask him for permission to use this in a video. I wasn't sure if he'd be okay with me showing something that's similar to his likeness or not. But he was totally okay with it, and he really likes the chibi. He thinks it's cute. So here's the chibi version of my boyfriend. I thought it might be kind of nice for all of you to have some sort of visual of him. Plus, this was a lot of fun to draw and helped raise my mood. Something I used to do a lot was use fashion pictures on Pinterest to do pose studies. It's not something I've done much recently, so I thought it would be nice to revisit it. And to make it more fun, I decided to draw my original characters Doris, Faith, and Annabelle into the outfits. I'm starting by drawing Doris into this collared shirt and skirt outfit. For some reason when I saw it, I thought, oh, I need to draw Doris in this outfit. Also, I decided to bring in the reference for all of you to see. I often don't really do this. I'll have my reference on a different screen or in a different window, but I thought you might like being able to see what I was drawing from as I'm drawing it. I do stylize the proportions to my style so it better fits my characters, but the proportions do slightly change. They almost always do if I'm drawing from references instead of imagination. For the colors, I kept things really simple and only applied a bit of shading. Overall, I wanted to keep these really quick and sketchy. I think Faith is my favorite one out of the three of these. I really like how she turned out, and it totally seems like she would wear this outfit. I did change the colors of the outfit to match the colors that she usually wears, but it was super fun drawing this outfit and Faith. When doing studies like this, I try to pay attention to the space between elements and also negative space or the empty space between elements. Things like how much space is in between the feet, or how much does the skirt stick out from the jacket, things kind of like that. I do sometimes adjust things to fit how I want them, like I made the skirt stick out a bit more on the right just because I wanted it to. Technically, Annabelle's should have been the easiest. Her pose is a pretty basic side view pose. The model was leaning a good amount, so I was trying to do the same for my drawing. And I do still like how it turned out, but I feel like I had to do a bit more finagling with the sketch than the other ones. It was really nice revisiting doing studies like this. I haven't done Pinterest fashion studies like this in a really long time, and it was a nice way to practice and get warmed up. Plus I got to draw my babies in super cute outfits, so that was fun. After drawing Chibi Boyfriend and doing some more simple pose studies, I felt like I was ready to try something a bit more complicated again. But of course, to make it a bit fun, I am making my study subject be Link. At some kind of special game event, they had this really cool statue thing, and Link is in this really neat pose. I was going to do multiple quick studies, but I thought it might be better to take my time to do one slower study and try to flesh things out a little bit more. I chose this picture as my study because it has a good amount of foreshortening, and foreshortening is always something I'm trying to get better at. Like I mentioned earlier, my relationship with art has kind of changed over the last year, and to an extent I agree with the comments that say I'm not improving. Agree might not be the right word. Maybe it's more that it's something I feel insecure or guilty about because I know I'm not focusing on art as much as I used to. For a while now, I've been trying to focus more on my life and myself instead of just art. Before I made this choice, it kind of felt like art was my main focus or was a bit all-consuming. I would draw for YouTube, I was watching art videos and tutorials, I was sketching in my sketchbook several times a week, I would draw for my webcomic, and all I would do was think about art and YouTube and work and so on. And I'm not saying these were all bad things, it's just I noticed I was starting to get burned out, like really bad. I was starting to not like art because it was basically all I was focusing on. On top of all of this, I was also dealing with a lot of wrist, elbow, and shoulder pain. I do still deal with it to some extent, but it's not as bad as it used to be. With the track I was on, I felt like I was starting to not like art, and I didn't want art to become something that I hated, so I made the choice to allow myself to step back from it a bit. Instead of focusing on art nearly all the time, I would try to focus more on my well-being and family, doing things like working out, playing games, hanging out with my family, joining a dating site. I allowed myself to step back and focus more on other things. And that being said, I do still draw for a good amount of hours each week. It's just not as much as it was, and I still kind of battle with feeling a bit guilty about this for some reason, but I really shouldn't feel guilty about it. And I think a lot of artists get stuck in feeling they always need to be improving, they always need to be getting better, and if you're not getting better, what's the point of it all? And if you are a professional artist working in a certain field with businesses and stuff, that makes sense. But when art is more of your hobby and you're doing it for fun or to have something that you enjoy, do we really need to add the pressure to always be improving ourselves? And I'm not saying it's bad to want to improve. I just think it can become maybe a bit harmful if you're putting like a lot of pressure on yourself to improve. You gotta have that healthy balance, I suppose. And recently I feel like I'm trying to not put pressure on myself, but my comment section is. And I do want to say that I do get comments saying that they see improvement in my art, and so many of you are super kind and supportive, and I'm super thankful for that. I will forever be grateful to all of you who have supported me and shown me kindness, and I'm happy that many of you do see improvement. That being said, I can tell my improvement has slowed a bit since I decided to take a bit of a step back from art. My improvement is slower and maybe a bit harder to see, but I have also improved in ways that you don't see as much. Like, I have gotten a lot faster at drawing. I'm able to get panels for my webcomic done faster and illustrations done faster, even though they are more complicated than what I used to draw. Also, I don't have to use references as much as I used to. I'm not saying using references is bad or you are less of an artist if you use them. I'm just noticing in my own art that I rely on them less. I'm able to draw more from my imagination, and that means my visual memory and overall understanding is improving, so I feel like that's good. So yeah, I do agree that my improvement has slowed over this last year or so, but I do think I'm still improving, and even if I'm not, that's okay. I want to enjoy art and get to share that joy with all of you, so instead of pressuring myself to get better, I'm trying to just have fun and experiment when I can. And I did really enjoy doing this study. The foreshortened arm was really tricky. You may have noticed I actually decided to increase the amount of foreshortening. In the original picture we can see a bit more of the arm, but I was having a hard time making that look not weird because the statue kind of had the elbow hyperextended, and when I was trying to draw that, it just looked a little off. So I made it so the hand was coming more directly at us, so it covers more of the arm. My favorite part of this process was adding the different tones. I feel like it really helped the sketch pop and be separated from the background. I also really liked adding the blurred particles to give more movement. And here's my sketchy study of Link. This was a good challenge, and I feel like I pushed myself a bit with this pose. Plus, I'm super hyped for Tears of the Kingdom, so drawing Link was a lot of fun. The last thing I'm going to be drawing is going to be in my sketchbook because I want to show it some love. Since the last time you saw my sketchbook, it's only been drawn in once, so I feel like it needs some more attention. I had already done some pose studies, so for in my sketchbook, I was more in the mood to play around with color. To help push myself to use different color combinations, I decided to use a wheel to pick a number between 1 and 24. This will pick the colors I use. First we have the number 9, and I got this deep blue color. Next I got the number 18, and it's a very pretty green. And last is the number 2, and that is this yellow. I'm actually really happy with the selection of colors. When I saw them, I thought they would all mix really well together. And I did test out how they mix, and it's quite interesting. The green and yellow make a very pretty green as expected. The blue and green surprised me a little bit. They make a kind of muted teal. The blue seems to tone down the green and yellow, and I think that's because it's on the more purple side. When colors are opposite of each other on the color wheel, the colors become more muted when you mix them. So because this is more of a purpley blue, it's muting the yellow and the green instead of mixing well with them like a more bluey blue. But overall these all go well together, and it is nice to have a color that can kind of tone things down. So now it's time to sketch. These colors were giving me jungle or foliage vibes, so I started looking for inspiration on Pinterest, and I found this lady with plants on her head and decided to try something like this. Like I was kind of saying, I don't need my drawing subject to be very complicated. I just wanted to play around with colors for this. So for my sketch, I'm using a green Arteza erasable color pencil. The sketchbook I'm using is an etchr watercolor sketchbook, and the paints I'm using are Paul Rubens. The case is pink, so it's really cute, plus the paints are really nice. I really like them. I do really love this sketchbook. It's a really nice watercolor sketchbook, and I love the paper. However, for my next sketchbook, I feel like I want to use something that's a bit cheap, I guess. Etchr sketchbooks are more expensive, so I feel like I need to not waste the paper, or I'm more picky about what I do with the sketchbook. I feel like I can't just sit down and doodle something really quick for like 5 minutes. I feel like I need to have stuff that I spent a little bit more time on. And I know I could keep 2 sketchbooks, one for more fancy watercolor stuff and one for derpy stuff, but for some reason I do not like having more than 1 sketchbook at a time. I've tried having 2 at the same time in the past, but then I always end up just abandoning one of them. So yeah, it doesn't really work. I am getting sort of close to finishing the sketchbook, so I'll be able to switch to a different one soon. If I use a cheaper sketchbook, I won't care if I just draw really derpy stuff or quick messy stuff. I won't feel like I'm wasting the paper. But I do really love this one. The paper in it's really nice and works really well for painting. Etchr should sponsor me or something. I keep recommending their sketchbooks because I do really like them. For the leaves, I started by planning them out with just a bunch of loose circles, and now I'm going back in and defining the shapes more. I was also trying to add the dark shadows in between the leaves. I honestly didn't really know what I was doing. I had put away my reference at this point and was kind of just feeling out how to best make the foliage flow. My reference had very round leaves, but I went with more pointy leaves. Overall, I feel like the flow turned out okay, I think. But now it's time for the fun part, the coloring. I start by blocking out the shape of my sketch with a muted teal that I mixed with the blue and the green. I added a lot of water to the paint, so it's just a light wash. I would say I waited for this to dry, but thankfully once I finished mixing up my other color, it was pretty dry already. A lot of times with watercolor, you want to work from light to dark, but you see, I'm often a chicken and fear using dark colors, so to help myself be a bit more bold, I decided to go in with the darker colors first. Plus I wanted to define the shapes of the leaves and shadows a bit more. This is also why I decided to do a quick simple sketch. I'm not as scared to play around with the colors, or I'm not scared of messing things up, because I didn't spend very much time doing this drawing. If I mess it up, it's not a big deal. But after I applied the shadow, I dipped my brush in water and made it very wet so I could push around the pigment a bit and blend it out to make the edges a little softer. Next I mixed up a green, mostly using the green and yellow, but I did add a little bit of blue to mute the color just a tish. Once again, I am applying this as I think the word is a glaze, I'm not sure, but the paint is thin enough that we can still see my shadows even if I go over them with a green color. On the right side, I tried to only use the paint that was left on my brush, and I was trying to not re-dip my brush. That way the bluish teal color shines through as the paint becomes less and less. And on the left side, I added a bit more yellow to my paint, so the colors become warmer. I do really like this transition of colors from a more yellow green to a more bluey green. It is really subtle, but I really like how it turned out. Now I go in with darker colors and also different color pencil colors to tighten things up a little bit. I had a ton of fun working on this sketch. It was super fun working with different colors. Plus, picking the colors at random made me use colors together that I don't usually use. Like, I don't think I've used this green color much before, but I really like it. And I went half flat to mix it with the more purpley blue. I would have gone with more of a sky blue by default. I was having so much fun that I thought about doing another sketch. However, my wrist was kind of starting to hurt, so I decided to only do one. But the page was feeling a bit empty, so to fill it up, I added some light swatches of the colors I used. I made them really light so that they wouldn't draw too much attention, but in the future, I could still kind of see what colors I chose, or that I randomly got because I didn't choose them. At the bottom, I decided to just write the date really big. I sketched it out in pencil. I don't have the best handwriting, so I was treating this more as drawing than writing. Once I liked it, I went over the pencil with watercolor. I was trying to keep things matching the aesthetic. And here is the finished page. I really enjoyed working on this and using the random colors. I feel like I want to do it again right now as I'm recording this audio. And here is all of the art I made in this video. I do apologize if the topic I discussed in this video was a bit depressing. but I hope that by me sharing my feelings and thoughts that it possibly helps some of you if you are having similar feelings. And I do feel much better after working on this video. Getting to kind of take a break and experiment with art was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. And plus getting to talk out my feelings with all of you also kind of helps me. It's like a weird therapy session, I guess. And thank you so much again to all of you who are so kind, support me, and encourage me. I wouldn't be where I am now if it weren't for all of you. And a special thank you to my YouTube members and Patreon patrons. Your support means so much to me as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!